Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Perspectives today. We talk with Mobile County's District Attorney about helping every child be safe from child victimization, including bullying, and raising awareness about the devastating impact of domestic violence. Now, these two issues that are a result of abusive behavior, they share the same month. It's a time to recognize the survivors and advocates and to bring them together to end domestic violence and bullying. According to the Foundation for Children, 13 million students will be bullied in the United States this year. That's about 1 in 4 students that will be bullied, and 1 in 3 will be cyberbullied. These statistics alone say why we need to bring attention to bullying and promote kindness, acceptance, and inclusion. The foundation and other advocates believe that bullying is preventable and it can be stopped. Now, according to their research, in more than half of the bullying situations, when someone intervenes, the bullying stops within 10 seconds. But they add that it takes everyone's commitment to recognize it and to respond to it. They also say that you need consistent education and intervention to prevent bullying. Domestic violence survivors and advocates are taking a united We Stand posture all over the nation during this Awareness Month. Together, they are mourning those who have died, celebrating those who have survived, and connecting those that are working to end domestic violence. Millions of Americans live in daily silent fear within their own homes. Now, one network organization says that more than 10 million Americans are abuse victims annually. Some advocates say that all of us should not stop working until society has zero tolerance for domestic violence, and until all victims and survivors, their children and their families impacted by it, can be heard. Our guest today on Perspectives, Mobile County District Attorney Keith Blackwood. After a quick break, we'll talk with DA Blackwood about 2 age-old problems that we're still spending resources on and trying to prevent, as well as put an end to it. Now, we'll hear how our current district attorney's office is addressing both of those problems as Perspectives continues in just a moment. Welcome back, and our guest today, District Attorney Keith Blackwood. We're talking about 2 issues that are taking place in the, I guess you could say, in the awareness perspective this month. But it doesn't end on the 31st for you. It's something that is not only front of mind and something that you are concerned about, but as a district attorney's office, is also a major issue that you have different ways of addressing, and you're keeping your teams, I guess you could say, actively involved in putting an end to it. Thanks for joining us today to talk about it. And I guess let's start out with bullying, since it affects the youngest of people in our community. And, you know, I think we all have stories about having to deal with bullies in our elementary school days, and hopefully not past that, but for some people, of course, even in high school. What seems to be the issue that we can't just put an end to this? What is the ongoing reoccurrence that happens now, this day, still, here we are, 2023?
Well, you're exactly right, Eric, and I want to thank you once again for having me on Perspectives to talk about these very important issues. Bullying is something that I think many people have dealt with, and you know, one thing that we have seen is that the bullying that you or I may have dealt with when we were younger has really changed and evolved. You know, I think the traditional bully on school grounds may still exist to a point. There's been so much education about that, and I think that most kids are basically good, and we have empowered our children to really speak out about that. But what we're seeing now in this new modern era that we're in is that bullying doesn't just take place at school during school hours. Bullying takes place 24/7 online through social media and through other forums on the internet. And many times when we see a bullying situation, every child that's involved in that may not get into it because they think that they're being a bully. Many children will see a post on social media that is intended to bully, and they may think it's funny, and they'll share it. And the more these things get shared, the bigger the situation becomes, to the point where you have a victim of this cyberbullying that in many times has serious mental health issues because of this. We're seeing suicide rates across the country increase among our young people because of online bullying. And so, we are in the process of educating our children and parents about cyberbullying, how to prevent it, how to stop it. The first thing that we're teaching them to do when they see something online like this, don't share it for any reason whatsoever. Even if you think it's humorous, there is a person on the other end of that computer screen that can be dealing with some very serious issues as a result of something that's posted on social media.
And that education process is so important that you're speaking of. As a parent and grandparent, I have been to some of those seminars so we can hear more of the steps that they are advising us to take as it relates to proper use of the cell phones and iPads, and of course, do you think that we're giving our children cell phones at too young an age now? I
think so, especially giving them unfettered access to the World Wide Web. I mean, once you give unfettered access to a child to the internet, then anyone in the world can access that child. And that not only opens up a child to becoming a victim of something very serious, it also gives a child whose brain is not fully developed as to the consequences of what they do or say online. It gives them the opportunity to make a post about another person that they may think is harmless, but that causes real harm to the person often a child on the other side of that computer screen.
As you're sharing that information, it makes me think that you almost like how cigarettes have warning labels on the side of the packs. I'm sure many of those smokers don't read it, but just to think if maybe we could have a cell phone that when you go to open your cell phone up to use it, you get a warning about what's possible if you do this or if you do that. This could be opening a can of worms. Something though to give them a top of mind thought right then, because as you know, advertising and public service announcements, they do work, but they've got to be on an ongoing, consistent basis.
Right, those kinds of things do work. However, the number one tool that our children have to protect them are parents and guardians, the people responsible for the supervision of children. And we want to educate parents that they need to be involved in their children's online access. They need to limit it to things that are appropriate for children, whether that's content restriction of children or restricting the time that they have on the devices. Young children up in the middle of the night with a tablet on social media, so many things can go wrong out of a situation like that. So as we're educating children, through our Helping Families initiative in schools, we also seek to educate parents that a simple device is a gateway into things out in the world that children just are not ready to be a part of.
So when they purchase the cell phone, there are programs, I guess, or apps they can inquire about that they can restrict the type of usage of either the phone or the iPad.
There are many apps out there that provide monitoring for parents that monitors all devices that are hooked up to these apps. It can be for the entire household. For a parent or a guardian that has a number of children, these apps provide an easy way to monitor that access. Time can be restricted on their devices through these different apps and programs. And there are a lot of them out there. There are some faith-based ones that are really good, and there are some out there in the secular app world that provide the same types of monitoring for household devices.
And how do you reach out to parents through your Healthy Family initiatives to get this message out to the broad community?
Right. Well, one of the great things about our Helping Families initiative that we have in the school systems, it's not limited to just the students that are in the school. We take a holistic approach and we address the family's needs. And so we're able to communicate with parents through this program and really give them the resources and information that they need in order to help their children be successful and to protect them, especially in cases of cyberbullying and things of that nature.
We're going to take a break here shortly. One of the things when we come back, you want to address the process of people, if they see something, say something, as far as reporting it to the Healthy Family Initiative so that they can hopefully prevent something deadly from happening as relates to some of the things that are happening now about decisions, as well as how families who are concerned, where they can call to get more information. So we'll share some of that as well. Our very special guest this morning, District Attorney Keith Blackwood, talking about bullying. And then when we come back, we'll also be addressing the issue of domestic violence. Perspectives continues in just a moment. $10 million young people annually face bullying in America. We're talking this morning with District Attorney Keith Blackwood about how we handle it here in the Mobile County area. So for someone who spots or shared information that someone is being bullied or cyberbullied, what do they do next?
If a child is the victim of bullying, or if they see something, the first thing that they should do is tell someone that they trust, whether it's a parent or a guardian, a teacher, a school administrator. If it happens within the context of school and cyberbullying, that translates into the school day as well. Mm-hmm. The school system is well equipped with licensed counselors, the teachers, the administrators, to deal with these types of situations. The schools can also notify the district attorney's office, and through our Helping Families initiative, we can help them intervene in a bullying situation to educate and attempt to resolve whatever bullying scenario is going on.
All right, so make sure that parents are listening to that this morning to understand there is help available through the Helping Families initiative. Well, let's talk about domestic abuse and the violence that takes place in that. We've had several cases this year, and of course it's always a sad thing to have to report when you hear about what has happened, who's involved, and then we've had cases of both the murder-suicide aspect of that as well. So the violence can affect several families and affect the children of that family if it happens. That's another question. How do we start doing more to bring an end to that? You would think, as we always say, by now, things should be different, but it's an age-old problem.
Right, and October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. As you alluded to earlier, domestic violence is something that we deal with in the district attorney's office 365 days a year. It's something that doesn't stop. We see a cycle of domestic violence. Very often you have the victims of domestic violence, who are overwhelmingly women, and men are not immune to being victims of domestic
Was it 1 in
violence.
3 women may have to address domestic violence in their lifetime?
That's right. It's just an unbelievable number, and it's a cycle, but very often the victim is financially dependent on the abuser, and so that creates a situation where for whatever reason, whether it's financial or children or some other reason, a victim may feel that they cannot get out of that situation. At the District Attorney's Office, we seek to break that cycle, and we want to educate victims of abuse that they have a way out. We have many partners in this fight through law enforcement, through Penelope House. I'm an advisory board member of Penelope House, and I really believe in what they're doing as a domestic violence shelter. They do a great job of really helping break that cycle.
Celebrating what, 40 years now, I believe?
Right, and they give that out, that safety net, to the domestic violence victim that feels that they have nowhere else to go. But it's something that we deal with on a daily basis, and the crimes that come out of it can be some of the most horrific crimes that I've personally prosecuted in my career, and it's something that we see escalate. It might start out small, and we're trying to educate the community on that. Even what a victim may perceive to be a small instance of domestic violence is very serious because of the tendency of those things to escalate.
Can family help? Can they sort of take steps to lead that person into seeking help, since many times, as you mentioned, there are things that keep them from making that step themselves?
I think so. I think family and loved ones that see these situations of domestic violence, they can reach out to law enforcement. They can reach out to us about these situations. But many times we see victims of domestic violence are isolated by their abusers. That's something that we have to be aware of, something that we continually have to fight, because that is a tactic that a domestic abuser will use. And they use that isolation to further victimize and eventually escalate to the point where in many cases the worst can happen.
Now, I understand with you being the district attorney for Mobile County, you're dealing with not just an urban population and suburban population, but also the rural. And sometimes the rural situation can be different because of that isolation point.
Right, that's absolutely correct. Mobile County is vast. It is very diverse. There are no two situations when it comes to domestic violence that look exactly alike. So there's not a one-size-fits-all solution to this problem, which is why it's so important that all of our partners in law enforcement and in the community work together as we do. We communicate about these issues on a regular basis. We have a domestic violence task force within our office that meets regularly to analyze trends in domestic violence in different parts of the county. And so we really try to stay on top of those trends so that we can better address them.
So are we in a better situation today, saying as you look back 15, 20 years ago, do you see where we have made progress to be able to help those who get caught up in that abuse cycle?
I think there has been real progress. Just the fact that we're having this conversation and that these conversations happen all the time between people that want to help. I think that has helped us come a long way from the past. Unfortunately, I don't think domestic violence is something that's ever going to completely go away, but we and our partners are going to do our very best to get to that point eventually.
Do you have some examples of how you've been able to catch it before it got to that next step as you look back on some of the things that the task force is doing?
Sure. Personally, the cases that I prosecuted of domestic violence, some of the worst ones ended in that worst way with murder, capital murder charges, things like that. So anytime we prosecute a domestic violence case and we hold an abuser accountable, anytime, whether it's misdemeanor domestic violence or felony domestic violence that comes short of that, that's a success story, because so many times we see this escalation to that worst point, the point where we don't want to be. And anytime that we're able to hold an abuser accountable and save a life, I think that we've done something really good.
Well, let's reiterate what you're advising families to do, or the individual themselves who sees that they are caught up in that cycle, what steps are we advising them to take?
Reach out to law enforcement. You know, we've got a great sheriff's office, we've got a great police department here in Mobile City and in municipalities all around the county. There is help out there. You know, a victim, if you feel like you're in a scenario that you can't get out of, contact Penelope House. They will help. There are many entities out there that want to help victims of domestic violence, but it takes that contact.
So it's so important to do that. Well, DA Blackwell, Ken, always glad to have you at a time when other issues are going on. So let's address one so those who are listening, if that helps ease some concerns they may have. One particular case with the Dallas family, you're working, trying to make sure that everything is complete to be able to share information. How does that process work? What, I guess, are the steps so that you can complete your work to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's crossed?
Sure, there's a few things at work here. You know, first of all, my heart goes out to the Dallas family. They've lost someone they love, and you know, unfortunately, we deal with many families that are similarly situated. You know, the premise here that I think needs to be questioned is, you know, whether there has been delay in this process, and I would say the answer to that question is no. There has been no delay in the presentation of that particular case to a grand jury. And one thing that many people aren't aware of is that we do not have a grand jury sitting in our office 5 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year. These things are scheduled, they're there at certain times. And so, you know, when an investigation is complete, that is the point that it can be presented to a grand jury when that grand jury is seated.
So time is involved in both aspects.
That's correct. And you know, in this particular case, again, there's been no delay in the process. I know it takes a period of time. That can be frustrating for a family. It's frustrating for so many families.
And for law enforcement.
And that's true. You know, in any given case, there are people on both sides. And that can be frustrating for everyone, but we have to respect the process. We have to respect the law, and I, as district attorney, am going to protect that process so that things can be done the right way every time.
We thank you for being here with us today and sharing on that, of course, but most importantly on the whole aspect of bullying prevention as well as domestic abuse issues that we've got to put an end to as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Eric.
All right, our district attorney, Keith Blackwood, we thank you for joining us today. And of course, if you want to reach out to the office, you can reach them there at the information you see there, mobileda.org. There's a phone number as well as reaching out on Facebook and X, formerly called Twitter, another way to reach the office. Thank you for joining us today on Perspectives. Of course, we've got more programs coming for you next week and the weeks beyond. Until then, I'm Eric Reynolds. You have a great week ahead.